Yeah.
Yes, I.
Finally.
Aloha, family. Let's do this, bro.
Hey, brother. Thank you for welcoming your place. Hello, everyone. I am here with Kevin Orosz. Super excited because he's the new modern mystic of the week, or with of the year, or of the decade, or something like that. I have been following your content, bro, and connecting online for a while. So
It's been about a year, huh?
Like a year. And I remember when we were talking at some point, like, when you're gonna come back to Bali, we should do a live and all of that stuff, putting the words, the power of the words there in the universe, and now things are happening.
And this is a testament, y'all, to the power of the internet to connect like-hearted, like-minded people, and the power of like perseverance and synchronicity. Because I remember Sebastian first reaching out to me last fall and being like traveling, really getting into the nomadic journey, and remembering like just the warmth I felt from your voice message, and knowing that we would be meeting up, whether it's in Bali or somewhere else. And now here we are.
So much synchronicity. I remember we were talking about favorite books, and at the same time mentioning Napoleon Hill, mentioning Joseph Campbell. And one of the things, guys, that I wanted to do this live, and I wanted to incorporate Kevin in this series of the modern mystic, is because I personally we connect a lot with the context. We have very similar interest, which is like from modern psychology, and mixing the modern psychology with the ancient wisdom, right? The wisdom of the yogis, of the tantrics, the ancient system of the Tao. And the most important thing I feel that is how to apply and how to ground all of this crazy, amazing, outstanding knowledge and wisdom, but in the modern life. And I think this is what makes us modern mystics, right? Grounding ancient knowledge that the guys figured out already thousands of years ago into nowadays relationships, into nowadays living. Like we have money, we have sex, we have jobs, we have community things. Times have been changing, and I think it's crucial now that's why I call it the new era of the modern mystic. It's crucial now to ground all this knowledge in nowadays life. What do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot of these mystics, whether it was through the use of plants, the use of their breathing, the use of techniques, rituals, ceremonies, were time travelers. And this is a beautiful perspective that I think I first heard from Terence McKenna, and he talks about the shaman or the mystic is someone who's seen the end. So if you're in a deep ceremony, if you're practicing intense yoga, if you're doing tantric breath work, if you're on a pilgrimage or a vision quest, there is a state that happens where there's an initiation into death. And that's not just your personal death. This is where the visions of the apocalypse come from, or the visions of the end of time. And the mystic is the person who sees and experiences that and then returns to the village. So it's almost like they were time traveling and knew, and this is of course spoken about in the Vedic culture with the Kali Yuga, that there would be a time where Earth needs these techniques to go mainstream, right? Everyone, even the marketplace, even the villager, even the priest, the pauper, the peasant, would need the mystical techniques to help birth a new planet, a new civilization. And I think we are living in that time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so exciting being now here, like, and applying all of these things in nowadays. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the hero's journey very soon that you just mentioned. But first of all, for people who are listening now, who are connecting with my content and who doesn't know Kevin, Kevin is a coach, is a speaker, is a freestyle MC. And also he have been studying modern psychology and ancient philosophy, things that I personally resonate a lot. I want to ask you, brother, what's happening in your life that put you in what you do nowadays? It's like speaking in stages, in festival, coaching people. What's in your life awakening all this interest in ancient wisdom and modern psychology that makes you do what you do now? A little bit of your story.
Yeah, brother, appreciate you. I'm usually doing the opposite and mining people's hero's journeys on these. It's pretty wild, because there was a time where I was like, I haven't been through enough to experience and embody what I feel like I've experienced and embodied just in the last 5 years, let's say. But that's just my mind wanting it to be hard or wanting it to be a certain way, because I spent most of my youth completely immersed in nature, spending a lot of time alone, and spending tens of thousands of hours in books, in video games, watching movies, and living in like a fantastical reality where I was absorbing all that knowledge. And now I see that has served me and given me a library of world mythology to draw upon. So already it was preloaded that I was interested in the mystical, in the mysterious, and in the mythological. And so fast forward to school, mathematics and like very like deductive, logical only stuff never appealed to me, and it never interested me. What did interest me was words, stories, and once I learned about it, psychology and the mind. And so I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I was like, I can speak well, I can think critically, and I can argue and debate really well. And so I went into school, university, wanting to be an attorney, a lawyer. That popped pretty instantly because I realized what lawyers do in the mainstream, and this is Texas, the United States, was at best really boring and like highly like exhausting, and at worst straight up criminal and corrupt. So that wasn't going to be a path for me. Found psychology, switched my major, also added in philosophy. And then fast forward to that, I thought I wanted to be academic. So then I was on the PhD track in psychology. I was like, okay, I got my bachelor's degree. I was applying to grad schools. I wanted to do evolutionary social psychology. Around this time, though, I started hitting walls. The job I was working after college was dead end. I hated it. A relationship I had been in for years, from high school to university, ended when I found out that I had been cheated on, and there was this whole betrayal happening that my identity was like codependent within. And that hitting at the same time as losing purpose, as getting in this job and leaving school, was a recipe for drinking, partying, depression, panic attacks, insomnia, to the point where, I reached a breaking point of, this isn't even worth it, and I don't know what to do with my life. And at that moment, as the universe has it, at my lowest moment where, I was never suicidal, but I definitely was like considering just walking out of my life, and just, I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. I like grab a tent and go live in the wilderness. At that moment, I found Joseph Campbell in The Hero's Journey. At that moment, I took my first yoga class. I learned meditation from one of my first teachers. And I found Aikido and Kendo, so martial arts. And from there, a lot of pathways opened.
Man,
so led to this moment.
When you describe your story, it's like give me goosebumps, because like so many similarities. I think we haven't shared so much about our own story, but so much similarities, and so aligned with the hero's journey as well. All this process. As well, like martial arts has been my salvation with yoga and meditation at some point, and ancient scriptures, but all of them came for a moment of touching rock bottom. And this is the moment that I feel like when we look back from nowadays to that moments of like the most challenging moments of our life, when our relationships with our physical health, also in my case, was so bad, was so low, and we look back and we say like, wow, I'm grateful for that. I mean, I will never be here. We will never be here talking about this. We will never be maybe living here in Bali and doing what we do if that haven't happened before.
Right.
So when I think about this, my muscle of trust, I feel like gets super stronger, because whatever challenge that I am eventually experiencing now in this moment, or you, is like, all right, I still trust. I mean, I have been worse, and this have been putting me in a better space. So, and trusting in the universe, trusting whatever it happened, trusting adversity, I think that's a superpower, man, that you integrate that. You develop that muscle of trust and confidence in yourself, in life, in God. This is like level up in life.
Yes.
Amazing. You were mentioning purpose. You were mentioning at some point you were moving away from purpose. And this is a topic that I'm personally very interested in. The tantric philosophy, in the Purusharthas, they have dharma, the concept of dharma, which is the concept of purpose. And I don't know if it happened to you, but I personally feel that I am 100% aligned with that in this moment of my life. Yes. And when I'm working with people, and most of clients or students, they're like, I am lost. You're talking about purpose, but I don't know what is my purpose. You know, there is a lot of like, I don't know, and they feel like they need to have it written there. They don't know if it's something that changed on time, that doesn't change. Could you ever state your purpose? It's more like a feeling. How would you describe, or how do you help people about that, finding that dharma, finding that purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really inimical for the masculine, I want to say, first off.
Sure.
And we all have the masculine, including women and female bodies. But the sense that you have a mission, and dharma is like, you know, it's your North Star. So if you're on dharma and you're in line with that, then you're living life on point, on mission, on purpose. And, you know, it's pretty simple. This is what I do with my clients. Like, it's like, okay, do you know what your purpose is? You know what your mission is? No? Okay, your new purpose is to find out. And so that's a very simple flip into action, where you don't need to know the big picture. You just need to take a step. Yeah. So the only, and I can be radically honest, I have days, even though I've dedicated, you know, since about 2012, when I really started to pop and wake up, what I was describing, I have oriented myself towards purpose and let everything else burn away. And that has caused massive change and growth and pain in my life. And I still don't know what my purpose is. People look at me and you maybe and think like, oh, well, they're living in Bali, they're doing X, Y, Z. And there are still days when I wake up and I feel fucking lost. Now, the difference though is I have a suite of techniques and tools. I have a tribe around me. I have so much to look back on to give me courage and be like, oh, okay, well, this has happened before. I can do it again. And, you know, as a good mystic, I'm an experimentalist. Sure. So I'm willing to keep doing experimentation on my body, on my mind, on my spirit, in business and relationships until I get closer to dharma. It's actually more of like taking away. It's not like dharma just comes and you're like, oh, that's it forever. Yeah. It's like, you know, maybe LeBron James felt that way. You know, maybe when he first picked up a basketball, he was like, this is it.
I just want to go a little bit deep on that, because I feel like this is one of the main mistakes of people which get stressed on the process of finding dharma. I feel like they think like it's something that will come like the Holy Spirit at some point, right. And you will be aware, you can state it and write it down on your board, and then that will not change, and that's your dharma. That's your mission for this life. Right. And I see so much people stress because of this. So much pressure, because also there is a lot of a new age narrative on you need to find your purpose. Right. But if you understand purpose on that way, you're gonna end up stressed, right? So even when Kevin was mentioning, sometimes I feel lost, or sometimes my clients say like, I don't have a dharma. Well, now your dharma is to find your dharma, and that gives you a sense of mission right away.
Bingo.
Right?
It's that simple.
I mean, with a few words, people like, oh, I'm living intentionally now. I'm waking up. I will figure out my dharma as a modern mystic, right? Yes. Joe Dispenza, I think, he said the other day, a modern mystic is a scientific, right? It's experimental. He's testing tools. He's testing practices, systems, wisdom in nowadays life, with our relationship, with our partners, with our family, in our community, and see what works or not. But just like the fact of being a seeker is like enjoying the ride, not necessarily being in that last sweet spot that I found it is done. I feel that's just a pattern of the mind. A pattern of the mind that I need to get there, succeed, okay, and that's done. And that's not even real. No. That's not even real. But living with a sense of purpose, with a sense of dharma, just by the fact that you are a human and you're existing, that could be enough. That is exciting enough for me.
Well, dharma doesn't have to be grandiose, and this is what we inherit from the Industrial Revolution and a lot of the entrepreneurs from the old school, and they have some grandiose dharma, right? Someone's dharma could be to be a gardener, or to be a grandma, or to be a monk, but living a very simple life. It doesn't have to be grandiose, because we're all part of a tapestry. So there's many different dharmas. And yeah, someone's dharma might be to be president of the United States, and that's a big dharma. But it's no different than the gardener's dharma, because they will be judged, if you believe that, in life. And you know, the law of karma, which maybe is the opposite note of dharma, just cause and effect, and what happens, judges you in a way, not that there's morality, but it's more science, how aligned are you to your dharma, whether it was big or small, great or less. It actually isn't about that. It's about aligning to it in every moment and coming back. The mystic is a scientist because he comes back to first principles. Oh, is this working? Oh, does this create freedom? Oh, does this create empowerment? And does this serve me as a human being living this life in this game? If not, then he probably releases it. And that's maybe the trap a lot of people get into with purpose.
Exactly. And the fact that it's fixed, the fact that it's just that and nothing else, and it will never change. I feel that's something like, we live in a system, the ecosystem, and systems adapt. Nothing is too structured, right? There's no straight lines in nature, right? We live in an ecosystem. The human body is a system, and systems have one of the main characteristics is that the system adapts. I feel like the dharma can be adaptable for each circumstances. You can be in the dharma of a father, you can be in the dharma of a son, of a coach, of a life explorer, but just by the fact that you're being a scientific, a modern mystic exploring, that could be enough. That could be like exciting enough, as I said before. The other day I was reading about some content of Alan Watts where we're saying like life is or the Taoist also mentioned that life is purposeless. And at some point you could think that in a bad way, like, oh, there's no purpose in life, so what the hell we're doing here, like meaningless, but in a negative connotation. But then he was mentioning, yeah, but rejoice on that, because that means that you can create your own meaning, right? And the ability that we have as humans to create our own meaning for whatever is happening, even in the most dark moments, in the adversity, I think as well, I think it's a superpower. It's something that you can learn to develop, like giving meaning and giving purpose to any circumstance that you're living.
Yeah, it's a canvas actually. That's actually good news that there isn't a pre-designed purpose. Some of us have certain gifts that would be best used in a certain way. So there's a way that there is some pre-built-in conditions, but what you do with it is everything.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And that's come a little bit more to the path of the self-awareness, that you need to also get to know yourself enough to know what are your tools, that you are good enough, like identifying what makes you feel joy when you do it. What are your passions? What are the things that you normally do better than the rest? Because that could be a powerful tool for whatever dharma is. That makes me remember the scriptures, for example, of the Bhagavad Gita, that when Arjuna was hesitating of fighting or not fighting, and he realized that, wow, one of my tools, one of the things that I know that comes easy to me, that is fighting. Literally, I'm one of the best archers. I'm the best archer of the world.
Right.
You know, so he born with that tool. He was ready, and this was a sign to say, okay, it's my mission, it's my dharma, it's my purpose to be here, to be present here, and to face this war, to face this battle, right? And I'm empowered with all these tools. That is, in the tantric philosophy, they will call it the artha. I'm empowered all of these tools to live my dharma in the best way. I love that. Yeah. You know, the other day I was in a restaurant listening to a conversation about Buddhism, and these two people was fighting about the concept of, discussing about the concept of suffering, happiness, and what is the root of suffering. And one of them, she was saying that, well, the Buddhists say that life is suffering, and the root of suffering is desire. So the fact that you have desires will make you suffer. And then she was saying, so therefore the whole life practice is to not have desires, to repress the desires, or pretend that it's not there, or do something with them that's gonna make them disappear. And I'm personally very fascinated about the concept of desire. I wanted to ask you actually, Kevin, what are your thoughts about that? We acknowledge that we have desires. What is the inner management, inner engineer that we need to do when we experience them, especially when we suffer because of them?
Right. Well, I mean, this is fascinating. And early in my journey, I thought I could live this way, I will say, because I found Taoism specifically, but also, Mahayana Buddhism and these epic texts and treatises on desirelessness and actually becoming enlightened, whatever that means. And I actually now think that's pretty inhuman. In ancient times, it may have been possible. And I think it's still possible. However, in a different age where you can live that way, outside of the marketplace, outside of the stresses of, you know, work, women, wealth, etc. And I say that because a lot of these guys were male. We don't have as many accounts of females doing this. You know, maybe you can get rid of all your desire and live as an animal where you are just an empty vessel responding to nature. You're thirsty, you drink. You don't desire and think about the water, you just drink. You're hungry, you eat. Okay. You're cold, you go towards warmth. Desire is not even a factor. However, for the rest of us, and for my life, desire actually is something to be alchemized and raised to a powerful place instead of denied. Because I denied desire for some time. I tried to live celibately. I tried to live without any alcohol or any plants of any kind. I won't call them drugs. Most of them are just plants. I tried to suppress desire for ambition, wealth, notoriety. And all that actually did was gimp my energy. It was like it was a hose of chi flowing, and I kinked it to try to cut that flow off, and I suffered even more than I would have suffered if I had just expressed the desire. So now it's, for me, it's an active detaching from attachment, and also practicing unattachment. And I use those words specifically because they're different. Being unattached means that you actually don't care. There actually isn't a desire like, oh, I'm unattached to the outcome. It's probably because you don't have much of a stake in it. You're actually not desiring a certain outcome. And so you can kind of be equanimous or ambivalent. And that's beautiful. Being unattached is a power of type. Detachment is the harder one, because detachment means you actually do care. Oh, I want to be in a relationship with that person. Oh, wow, I want to make money for XYZ. Oh, wow, I am really hungry. I desire to eat this specific thing or do this specific thing. That's a desire, and it's really powerful, especially when it's mixed up with positive or negative emotion. Now the practice is to detach from the outcome, not from the desire. And that's an art. And it is a messy art, because the suffering from desire comes from when you attach to the outcome and then it doesn't happen. Or, on the other side, the hedonist play is you attach to the outcome, you get it, but then you want more, and you suffer now because you can't get enough. And that's what I think the Buddhists were pointing at. This is the beauty of Yogi Bhajan, talking about the ego and desire, founder of Kundalini Yoga. He talks about, at least in the West, he talks about the goal isn't to destroy the ego or the desire, it's to raise it to a new level or a new octave of vibration of becoming universal and holy, and not pushing it down and pretending it's not there. So I think this is the art form, and for most people, certainly on the tantric path, which is one I resonate with, it's not about like, you know, you can be a guru and smoke, drink, and have a girlfriend. The difference is that you're not letting those attachments to the world cause unnecessary suffering, because you're not letting them spin out in the mind.
I think it's important to recognize the desires, for what I listen to you, as pure potential energy for creation, for manifestation. I mean, because the energy is there. It's the same thing with any emotion, right? When we experience any emotion, people will say, oh, I'm experiencing this joyful emotion. This is good vibration, it's good energy. But when you're experiencing anger, sadness, or grief, people may try to escape from that. And this is what I normally say in my last video, that this is the real cause of unhappiness, is when you try to escape and get into when you go into an inner conflict with how the inner emotions are. So the same I feel for desire, as if when you experience it, and any repression of it, for me, and it's happening to me in my life, I have been experiencing this a leaking of energy in most of the cases. But when I acknowledge that it's potential energy to get somewhere, to upgrade, or as you say, raise your vibration to the next level, I feel that it's a big awakening. So yeah, this is the concept of karma yoga. The yogis knew it. Karma yoga is the yoga of action, and this is explained, as I was mentioning before, in the Bhagavad Gita, when they say that it's all about acting, it's all about doing, but letting go the outcomes of your action, because just by the fact that you don't have control over them, I mean, you can do things. You can have desires, and I have desire to go and have a lunch here in this restaurant, and you act upon it, right? You do things. The outcomes of your action, you don't know, because you don't know the place is going to be closed or open. You don't know if they're going to have this dish or not. So, and you detach to that, as you were mentioning, but it's not the desire itself that is wrong, under my perspective, right? It's like getting too attached to a specific outcome that you cannot control. The Stoics, you know, the Greeks in the ancient Greek philosophy, they say that happiness, I mean, if you want to achieve happiness, you need a foundational. You need to use your logic, your brain, to have the discernment to see what you can control and what you cannot. If you have expectations on things that you cannot control, you are signing a contract, my friends, for suffering, right?
Yeah. You're setting yourself up for failure in that situation.
It's crazy. It's very interesting. So yeah, Naval Ravikant in the last podcast with Joe Rogan, he was mentioning that it's okay to have desires, and also be aware that how many desires you have. If I ask you what are your desires, and you give me like a crazy huge list, and all of this list, if I ask you why, what is the intention behind that desire, why you want $1 million in the bank, why you want a Lamborghini, you start to because you are not clear in the why, probably is like the wrong desire. So normally he say like, better you have a few desires, like 1, 2, 3, like main desires, but as intentions of living, as some compass for living, right? And that makes tons of sense.
It's huge.
Yeah, so you were mentioning the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a concept that fascinates me. The other day when we met, I showed you that I was reading the work of Joseph Campbell. I feel like it's something so present in our life, and for those who doesn't know, I would like you to explain and to talk a little bit about that, because it's something also that have been changing my life. It changed your life, having that understanding, that canvas for life, because when you understand, normally most of the suffering and most of the unnecessary fear dissolving meaningless. It's from any perspective of my life, from the microcosmos to the macrocosmos. The other day I was talking with my coach, and he was saying, hey, I found a guideline on how to write your book with your own story. He was telling me, because he's writing his own book, and he was saying, it's super important at the beginning to be aware. The first step that this guy talked to me it's called the call for action. And I was like, all right, what's next? Next comes the threshold, and then becomes the death and rebirth. It's super cool. It's an amazing system. I said, dude, this is very old. This is called the hero's journey. And they are using it for writing books. You can use it for your relationships. You can use it for your whole dharmic life cycle or whatever. For people who doesn't know about Joseph Campbell's work and the hero's journey, what is the hero's journey, and how you can ground yourself and make it practical for nowadays living, for the modern mystics?
Huge. I love that because mysticism is practical. It's a big theme I want to actually transmit with this podcast, because this is a game changer. The hero's journey, it's funny because we've been programmed with it our whole lives, because every good film, book, movie, video game, anything that you watch as a child, especially Disney, it's all architected with this. And the writers in Hollywood, the writers of these novels understand this, consciously or unconsciously. And the hero's journey, let me see if I can succinctly drop this. It's a master map of the collective unconscious and the individuation process of an ego within that. It's a master map. And what does that mean? That means historically, in every human life that's ever lived, in all human civilizations, and all the texts and all the journeys and all the spiritualities, religions, wars, romances, the rise and fall of empires, there is a pattern. There is a meta pattern of how that process works. It's cyclical, it happens in a circle, and it involves 3 major acts, and then you can break each act into at least 4 parts, which gives you a 12-part, like a clock. And those acts are the call to adventure, the confrontation with the shadow or the dragon, and the return home. And it's very simple, and you can think about Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, you can think about Atticus Finch, anything, anyone, Bilbo Baggins. That might be the most easy one to see. Bilbo and Frodo from Lord of the Rings are definitely doing this. And Tolkien had a deep understanding of this that actually Joseph Campbell uses Tolkien's work to develop the idea in his works. But yeah, there's a part of our life where things are going normally. You're in your village, you understand how things work. Maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you have a job, you have good relationships with reality. And then something happens, something feels off. Maybe it's your ennui and boredom. Maybe there's a death. Maybe someone comes with news and you can feel the energy and excitement of that. There's a call to adventure. The hero usually refuses the call at least once. So it's like, no, this is not for me, blah, blah, blah. And you can see this in your life now to make it practical. This is a new job. This is a relationship. This is you traveling the world. This is you writing that book, doing the thing, starting the project, launching XYZ. You usually refuse the call. Something will push you off the edge. So bankruptcy, breakup, disease, you'll get fucked up. Something will happen crossing the threshold.
Will shake your world.
Yeah, something will pop you. If you're meant to go, you will go. Now, when you get to the threshold, there's a threshold guardian. So there are people from your life and your tribe. There is a supernatural force, usually a monster, some kind of guardian, that is going to test you before you cross the threshold. Once you get across the threshold, you start to realize you are on an adventure and you are in the unknown. Now, you feel alone at first. Next thing that usually happens, the mentor appears. A mentor will come, someone ahead of you in the journey who's been out there, and you will meet with them. Now, once you meet the mentor, you may start encountering the road of trials. There's trials, there's tribulations. What happens? You face darkness. But in that darkness, you find allies and you find magical objects. So this is the sword in the journey, the magic wand, the pendant of protection. This is how it works in novels, but you can think about this in your life. These are programs, coaches, retreats. These are locations. These are friends, lovers. This is a mentor, an elder. You find all these allies, and as you approach the road of trials, and we're getting about to the 6 o'clock point on the clock, now you have to confront the full darkness or the shadow which has been living in the unconscious. This is what's guarding the treasure. This is the dragon, the demon. This is also called the atonement with the Father, because this is where Luke fights Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And the Father can be seen as the shadowy parts of the archetype of the Creator, because you're the Creator. But we call it the Father because this is what created you, and to unlock that force, you have to confront it directly. Once you do so, there's a death. That's symbolic. It can be ego death. It can be an actual death. It can be a losing of something you thought was yours, whether that's an ability, a job, whatever. Yeah. Then you rebirth. You gain the elixir. You gain the gold. You gain the magic weapon. And you start to return from the underworld to reality. And then you cross the threshold again, because some people, when they reach that state, right, their first ayahuasca experience, they're from the ashram. I just traveled to Bali. You can get high and actually get trapped and seduced in that world. So there's another threshold crossing where you have to understand what the power's for. And there's a new guardian. The mentor withdraws and you make the return home to bring the elixir back to your culture, back to the starting point, to revivify everyone around you with your new knowledge. That's a quick and dirty version of the hero journey. And the invitation for you all right now listening is, where are you in that process? Because step one is you need to understand where you are on the map. Then you can start to practically map out what happens next. So you got to map where you are on that cycle. And that gives you immense power to navigate further. This is what I use with clients, and I use it in my own life when I remember to. I forget all the time. It's like, man, why am I stuck right now? What the heck is going on? It's like, duh, dude, you just slayed a dragon. You just went through a whole process. You're still crusading. You need to be grounding and returning home, like really collect your energy and start making the path home. You don't need to keep conquesting. Or it's like, man, I feel all this energy momentum, but I'm not really sure, like, what's going on here? Why do I feel anxious? You just got a call to adventure. You need to take a leap. Something's calling you and you already know what it is, but in your head you think like, I already have it. It's like, no. A new cycle has started, So it's mapping yourself on this in your life. And this works for love and romance and sexuality. This works for business, entrepreneurship, art, creativity. This also works for your body.
health, travel.
Travel, everything you can imagine.
I think that explanation was on point, so it was really, really easy to understand and great to understand. So thanks for sharing that. The most important thing is like ground this into practicalities, like and having that map and understanding that map, that you can use just the information. I don't think you really need to like read the whole scriptures of it, but using this information to see, okay, in which part of the journey I am. And it's important to understand that Joseph Campbell it was just not creating something from nothing. He was understanding all these archetypes and the work with Carl Jung of the collective unconscious and the archetype, things that are embedded in human consciousness. I mean, this is deep psychology. This is pure science. When I talk to people about the hero's journey or about even yoga or tantric philosophy, it's like, no, actually I just believe in science. Or how it's possible that the hero's journey is science. I believe in the Harvard research of whatever. It's like, at some point, these guys didn't have Harvard or Stanford to have like the paper published, right? But all the yogis and the tantrics and the shamans, they are pure scientifics. Now the modern mystic can access technology as a tool to do that, but at the end, the hero's journey, it's coming from Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, and ancient wisdom of Eastern wisdom especially. So it's important to understand that, guys, that this is not woo-woo. This is just like a serious, real deal, legit science that you can apply, and it's insane to think that the knowledge is there. The how they call it, the master map. The master map is there. You can read about it. You can Google about it. You can try to understand it, to apply this to your life. And these are the tools, my friend, that we need to learn how to use. It's like these are the tools, especially nowadays with all these amazing people around, with social media, with the possibility of talking about these things now live to all of you. It's like the information, the wisdom, the tools are just there right in front of your nose, and you have access to that. When Kevin was mentioning that when he feels lost, when he feels out of dharma, it's okay, but he also feel like he have this bunch of juicy, sweet tools and system that involves your body, your breath, understanding, wisdom to apply and find contentment, find peace in the present moment. That is the healing for anxiety, man. That's healing for.
That's the antidepressant.
It's the antidepressant. Understanding and applying all these tools is so accessible. So an invitation, my friends, to do that. Very powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say something else about it.
No, please.
But I wanted to finish asking you about something else that I'm personally, I'm fascinated about it, which is the concept of flow state. The first time I heard about the concept of flow state was from Jason Silva.
Yeah.
That I am still very big fan of his content, his videos, that non-stop recording for like so many minutes, and he go into this kind of trance, sharing his knowledge, and then he express and talk about the concept of flow state, that many people are like, okay, how you do that? And this makes me remember what you do as well, because he mentioned about the rappers, like the freestyle rappers. That is something that Kevin also does, so check his content, it's really amazing. The ability to improvise and be super present. And I think in one of the interviews, Jason said that there is some studies that they study the brain of rappers, of freestyle rappers, when they are like in that state of flow, and there is a part of the brain which is related with control, especially cognitive control, that's completely shut down. So he was saying it's all about the practice of letting go the structure, let's go the planning, but be fully in the present moment. And I think that's a very, very yogic, or let's say spiritual quality. I mean, all the yogis are talking about being present, right? Being mindful. Mindfulness from the Buddhism also is coming from being present. And I feel like getting into that flow state, either if you are doing like a freestyle rap, whatever, or you are just there present with nature, or sharing some content, or teaching a workshop, I think it's super beautiful, super powerful, super valuable. So what is flow state, and why it's so important? And the most important question, how you can tap into that superpower?
Yeah, wonderful. It's my favorite thing right there. And I love that you bring up Jason Silva. He was also one of my first influences on doing what we're doing right now. Like, he inspired me to actually start using my phone to make videos at a time where I thought I wanted to be an author, and I was making a blog and I was hiding behind my laptop writing words and articles. So shout out to Jason Silva, he's a legend.
We're gonna tag him here.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I remember in the future interviewing him on my podcast and meeting him, maybe even having him out to a retreat one day. And that freestyle rap thing, I mean, that's freestyle rap, I would say, without a doubt, is my most accessible flow state. Probably right up there with sexuality. That's another one that is very powerful flow state. And the part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, which is the one up here in the frontal lobe that controls the rest of the brain, which is controlling, a lot of the language centers are in the left parietal lobe. And yeah, it's like you pop off the control mechanism and you are flooded with the energy of the unconscious. But the freestyle rapper, and what I'm really doing is I call it channeling, because I have no idea what I'm gonna say, but there's a profound trust that I just have to be fast enough, and the speed is the thing I love about it, because it's like you have to be lightning quick to catch the meaning as it pours out. So it's like you're catching the story blocks as they flow towards you, and you fuck up a lot. And it's funny, and that's a way to actually be with it. Is I use the momentum of fucking up by making a joke, which puts me back in the flow. So that's for me what flow states are. Now, on a more general term, and there's a whole science and psychology called flow psychology now, and the most famous researcher is actually Hungarian, which my lineage is part Hungarian. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. It's a pretty tongue twister, but if you just look up flow psychology, his name will come up first. Jason Silva studied him, Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel, who have written Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire. They're like the leading people, I'd say. They run the Flow Genome Project and all that. There's basically, let's say, 4 qualities of a flow state. One is you have a loss of sense of self. So when you're in a flow state, and this can be anything, you can be in a flow state mailing a letter. You can be in a flow state cooking an omelet. You can be in a flow state on stage or doing a TED Talk. You can have a flow state, romancing your lady or your man. But your sense of self is gone, which gives you a ton of energy because you're not neurotic thinking about yourself. Another one is the sense of time is gone. So, wow, it feels like time flies when I'm having fun, or like, you have a deep conversation, and it's like, it was only 10 minutes, but it felt like 2 hours. That's another hallmark of a flow state. Sure. Time dilation is what it's called in psychology. The next one is you have a sense of ease and high performance. So when Kobe Bryant or LeBron James is in the fourth quarter of a basketball game and they're down 10 points and he's just stroking shots, it's just like, holy shit, what is going on? He's in such a profound flow state because his juices are online, so his performance is just 10x. And his ease, like it's effortless. That's another aspect of a flow state. The fourth aspect is a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. It loops back to dharma. When you're in a flow state, you actually feel as if it has great meaning. And this may be the most important part of it, because those other ones you can get from a lot of different things. But the meaning is what vivifies and edifies your life. And that's why I've dedicated so much energy into it. And actually, I have an online course coming out, which is my next big thing I'm launching right now, which is exciting, called Flow State Mastery, which is all about this. And I've broken it down into 6 weeks of training, 6 modules in the course, which govern meditation, which is number 1, breath work, number 2. Those 2 alone will get you really far. Number 3 is self-programming. So this is things like affirmation, visualization, writing, hypnosis, inducting yourself with good information, self-programming. Then I, of course, movement, exercise. We already talked about martial arts and yoga. Massive flow state right there. Tantra, or just in general, sensuality, sexuality, huge flow generator. And the last one is reading. So actually receiving knowledge, whether it's through a sutra, whether it's sitting with a teacher, it's reading or listening. So you might be in a flow state right now as you watch or listen to this later. Of this conversation and this transmission, you can get into a flow state like that. And I think, just like we're talking about with dharma, it's keep it simple. You can get into a flow state, and this is what Zen is all about. Zen and some other people in history that Alan Watts studied, dearly. are masters of flow. Because
Yeah.
you can get into a flow state lighting incense. You can get into a flow state cleaning the bathroom. You can get into a flow state washing dishes. You can get into a flow state gardening and pulling weeds. It's really about where your attention and focus are.
Do you think getting into flow state eventually, when you are, and let's call it, I like the word that you use, channeling, because it's like it's not you, it's like some part of your, I don't know, I feel like in last chakra opening and downloading some weird information where I don't know where it's coming.
Right,
I mean, I
right.
know it sounds crazy, but it feels like that sometimes. So my question is basically, do you think that can upgraded you as a human? Because it's happened to me also when I'm teaching classes, and sometimes I start very, very kind of very slow, and I'm trying to, it's just not literally it's not flowing. And at some point I go into, somebody asks a question and I go into that answer and I answer for 10 minutes. And when I finish the 10 minutes, I come back and I say, what the hell did I say? It's like, that was not me.
Right.
And sometimes I tell my students, and how I recognize that, because there is a moment that you really wake up and you come back to your normal operation center, and my rational brain say, hey dude, what just happened in the last 10 minutes?
Yeah.
It's like a circuit broken in the brain. And how I notice, because I feel that sense of coming back, and I see the faces of some people like this,
Right.
and it's like, what? I said, can you repeat that quote that you say? Like, I seriously cannot. I seriously cannot. And there is a sense of purpose, as you say. There is a sense of effortlessness, 100%, and it's so powerful. So yeah, coming back to the question, is something that you would say, whoa, what I just said is actually teaching that I get somewhere for myself that will help me, not necessarily in this scene that I'm teaching, but will help me for my life, for upgrade my life. Either you are teaching, if you're rapping, in your sexuality / sensuality, is like, wow, I didn't know I can be like that. I didn't know I can do this. I didn't know I can say this, but now I know I can. And eventually you can use that in a more effortless way in the future, right?
Right. And this is the value of just like the hero's journey and that map. I call it, it's your flow map, and you want to know your flow triggers. So what triggers a flow state? For you, it might be teaching and answering a question and talking about, deep knowledge or wisdom. That's the one for me too. A flow state for a lot of people is just going to the gym or going to a yoga class. Everyone knows they feel better after moving. It's a flow trigger. For a lot of people, obviously, having sex is a massive flow trigger. Yeah. Another one is small rituals, making tea, cooking yourself dinner, setting a timer, meditating, doing a ritual, drawing cards, using divination. Recently, I've been really getting back into, my favorite is the I Ching, which is a Chinese text of divination. It's super powerful. It's like talking to Master Yoda. And, it's not trivial. So people might be like, well, but I'm not like doing stuff like y'all, I can't, how do I get into a flow state? Yeah. And it's like, anytime you have looked back on your life and you're in that state of like, wow, I didn't realize life could be this good, or I didn't realize I was that good at XYZ, you were in a flow state. It's actually our natural state. The human being and animals, and you see this in children, they're in a flow state a lot of the time. That's why they're so effective at what they do, and they're so lovable, and they're so present to life. The overthinking, the overcomplicating life that's drawn by this thing and how we've been trained in the West is what blocks flow. And so it's a lot of deconditioning, actually.
I think that is the opposite of the flow state is it's fear, because it's terrifying letting go control. Letting go the cognitive controlling part of the brain. I think it's so terrifying. That's why people, when they are forced to improvise, or they are called to the front, to the scenario, to the spot, in a way that they need to improvise or they need to say something, it's like, hey, you want to say something and you're stand up in front of all the people. That's why people get so scared. I mean, even public speaking is one of the biggest fear of any human, right? Even in some studies that say it's even more scary than death. And because you need to let go control. And that's why you're mentioning sexuality is so powerful, because if you are, let's say, in a very intimate moment with your partner, with your lover, for example, you're not really thinking in a linear way, right? No. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do this movement because this movement is good, I read it in this magazine, right, or whatever, or I'm gonna say this because this will have like a better reception from my lover. That wouldn't work. No. You know, that would never work. But when you're fully present and letting go control, and in the present moment, things will flow literally. And this is the thing, is fear. The fear of losing control. I don't know, what do you think, Kevin? But I feel is one of the most, or at least for me, in many cases, terrifying thing. When I was in plant medicine as well, and the plant was kicking in, and I was losing control of myself, is just terrifying. It's a practice of death. Letting go control, the ultimate letting go is a practice of death, right? We could say the flow state is a practice of death. Death of your cognitive, rational, structured brain to a completely free flow, which is your natural state, as you mentioned. So I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, and there's a lot about control that's based in fear for a lot of us. And I know for me, and you know, just like with the Dharma, I still struggle with this a lot, because there's a way that as a thinker and a mystic myself, the more I know about flow states, the more my mind can get clever and fuck me out of a flow state. So that's a funny thing. Actually, the beginner's mind is more powerful in a lot of ways, because you don't know how to stop the energy with your cleverness. And yeah, there's two things. I think what I actually fear more than death is madness, which is being unable to control the mind, which is very interesting, right? Because practicing for death is the art of the mystic. Can you practice for death and die before you die? That's actually the goal of the deep, you know, the Tathagata and the sutras and the Tibetan, the Bardo Thodol, and you know, all these texts that talk about yoga, all the yogas, it's a death practice. Because if you can die while you're still in this life, in this body, you are free. And you are ultimately powerful, and you share in the power of the Creator, because now everything's up for grabs. Fear can't stop you, because you're not afraid of losing your life or your body. Things you don't even own, they're from the earth, and they will return there. And so this is one of the games we get to play as humans, is like, are you gonna flow, or are you gonna clinch in life and try to control, and if I only had this, and then I could it's like, you know, you can live that way to remember flow at some point.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the other day I was writing, like, everyone have the call to be a mystic. I mean, everyone is supposed to be a mystic. We are here, we are all seeker of truth, and at some point we went too much into the mind, we lose that aspect. And I love what you say when you say madness, which is the other side, with like completely no control of the mind. When Carl Jung talked about the permeability between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind, and the unconscious mind, which is connected with the collective, when the permeability is so important for the health of your mind, to have the right permeability between the rational, logical, let's say conscious also mind, with all the magic and the mysteries and the truth and the deep stuff of the unconscious and the collective unconscious. So this is how deep flow state is, my friends. We start talking about rap, and now we're talking about death and letting go control as a practice of death, surrender, and that's the spiritual practice. That's the main, I feel, spiritual practice. Modern mystic, to be a modern mystic, we need to understand that if you want to embrace life, you need to embrace death. I mean, that's the yin and the yang, right? And I love that concept of dying before you die. So when you experience that, and could be through many things, right? Through different things, through even some people are talking a lot about plant medicine nowadays, but there's even meditations like Osho, I know, have like death meditations that they induce you in a meditation that you are literally dying in order to do that. And when you experience that, you're tricking your mind, and at some point the fear of death, which is probably one of the most fears and the root of many of our fears, start to dissolves. And when dissolves, you become like a freaking live warrior, right? You
Yes.
become the fearless, bold life warrior, which you are called to be, right?
Yeah.
So it's very powerful.
It's our birthright.
How to live, let's finish with this. How to live and die like a mystic by Kevin. What do you think?
Yeah.
Summarizing all these
Yes.
little nicey, juicy topics that we have been talking today. How to live and how to die like a mystic nowadays, 2019.
Right, as a modern mystic, because this is the age we find ourselves in, and I believe we chose our birth, and there's a part of it that like we didn't choose this, we're here, but now that we're here, what do? I said this to a client this morning. You have two ways to look at reality. One is the meta perspective. So as a mystic, you study metaphysics, ideally, which is how does the universe work? What are the laws? Who's my creator? What's happening? That's really important because you can zoom the way the fuck out and see that we're on a tiny planet spinning in a universe full of billions of planets and stars. We have family out there, I think, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So your tiny problems get to see the macrocosmos, and that puts a lot of perspective in on life and death. Important. Then flip it. What can you control and master? And this is from Jocko Willings, which I think is an epic ex-Navy SEAL who just gets shit done. And it's your 3-foot world. Can you master, let's call it the 1 meter world, we're here in Bali. Can you master the immediate environment around you? Your body, your thoughts, your cleanliness, your actions, your words, your heart, your relationships. And then, as a mystic, use science and your mind and your heart to master that reality, connect it up to the metaphysic. In that way, you live and die complete, because everything else is going to be what it's going to be. You can't control the other parts of reality that are outside that linkage between your high ideals and the world and the universe and your mastery of the self. And so that's the wrap.
Wow. Thanks for that. That was like awesome. That was powerful and very deep. Guys, if you really want to know like tools and bring this into practicality, especially the topic of the flow state that we were talking at the end, you can join. I would definitely join the course soon when it's coming. The course of Kevin, which is Flow State Mastery. Any information when it's gonna be ready? When it's gonna be for applications and everything?
It's you can flowstatemastery.com right now. You can get on the newsletter, be the first one to be able to join the community. It'll be launching in the next 2 weeks, so it's finishing touches, systems. The course is complete. The content, it's just the delivery, the community. So I'm excited to share that with the world.
Full power, brother. So thanks much for that offering. Thanks so much for this conversation. Super excited. I really wanted to talk. Maybe we can do another one because there's a lot of more topics that I want to talk to you. We will see. We'll make it happen. So thanks all of you who are watching. I'm gonna post this also as well in the other social media. Keep in touch. More modern mystics are coming. This is like ancient wisdom apply. We're talking about yoga, right. Taoism. We're talking about the teachings of Stoicism, Dharma, an ancient concept, flow state, Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell. How to apply that in a way that we can live like in the modern day and deal better with unexpected situation, with suffering, with pain, and live intentionally, live with meaning, create your own meaning. Create your own Dharma. Right? And live and express yourself authentically. For me, it's huge. That's one of the main things to have a happy life, is expressing yourself authentically, getting to know yourself, having a journey of self-exploration, of self-understanding, and from that space, expressing yourself. Bruce Lee say, like, even martial arts is an art of life, which is the meaning of martial arts is expressing yourself honestly, being ready to express yourself honestly. Yoga is the fearless expression of the self. And so on, man. We are here to be ourselves. We are here to awaken who we really are. And all these tools, my friend, the hero's journey, getting into flow states, finding your own meaning for life, understanding your desires, are critical tools for having a powerful, meaningful life that everyone have a call, right, to live. Yes. So well thank you all. Brother. Thanks, Manjit. Thanks, Caro. Thanks, Michael, Manaka, everyone who is watching. Love you all. See you next time.
Appreciate y'all. Share this out, tag somebody who could benefit from this. Everybody watching on my channel, make sure you're following Sebastian and his epic modern mystics and all the beautiful hero's journeys therein. Love y'all, fam.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.